So I think we will start. I'm going to describe the focus of our conversation tonight, which is in Hindu culture, some of you may know, you'll see people going like this to each other, and they will say Namaste, and actually what they are saying is, I am bowing, the divine light within me bows to the divine light within you. It's a beautiful recognition. Unfortunately, sometimes us being human becomes just a ritual, but that's the intent of it, to recognize the divine in both of us. And my personal feeling is that we all have it. Some of us have an easier time accessing it or shining it than others, but it's there in each of us as humans and each of us as living beings. Every living being, in my way of seeing things, is an expression of, whether you want to call it the divine or nature or the cosmos, but every living life itself is a vibration of light. And these are very difficult times. And of all times for us to begin to find our own light and to begin to try and shine it out into the world, this is the time. It's when it's difficult to do that we need to do it. It's lovely if we do it when it's easier, but when times are really difficult, instead of getting depressed and down, it's time to connect with and intensify our light for our own sakes and to be a light for others. With light, we get strength. With darkness, we give up. And because that light is innate in us in life, and because life is so incredibly vibrant and resilient, we don't know what's going to happen, but giving up is really doesn't make any sense. So first of all, welcome to everybody who I recognize, and welcome to everyone else. I look forward to getting to know each of you. There's a lovely poem by Rumi which says, "Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, it doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you have broken your vows 1,000 times, come, yet again, come, come." So that's the invitation to all of us, to come and to try to get, not to try, to create together a safe place. It's not that easy to really expose ourselves to others. And to make a mutual agreement that this is a safe place for us to as Andrew Harvey says, explore our heartbreak so that we can get out of it. As I would say, a safe place to share your deepest hopes and aspirations, because it's scary to do that if you've been crushed over and over and other people tell you that you're silly for it. So the point is to be a safe place and to hold the space for each other. And every single one of us has that capacity. If one of us suddenly had a car accident, someone else would be able to be there and hold the space for that person and keep them safe until medicine comes. It can be reversed at any time. We each have the capacity to hold the space for the other, and for us collectively to hold the space for each other in this group. And then to hold the space and to begin to focus it so that we can actually come to some results and action items in our life. So being the light in these dark times, a couple of people told me I should share an experience that I had. I was a little reluctant to, not out of shyness so much, because I think this is a safe place, but I think I need to. So I'm going to share an experience and then ask each of you who would like to share yours. And that is when I was approximately 7 years old or so. I was lying on a beach. I remember the sound of the gulls on the beach. And suddenly the sense of profound, all-encompassing peace and joy just flooded me. I was 7 years old. I had no clue what was happening, why it happened. I loved it. And I wanted it to last. And it didn't. And one more time when I was 15, it visited me again, if that's the right word. It was lasted much less time. And I've never had it again like that. But it's lasted me a lifetime. It's like I've had a sense of being connected to something larger than me, or light pouring through into me that has been a reference point for all my life. And I was talking with Hope about this the other day, and I said, you know, I don't know how useful it is for me to share this with other people. And she said she thought it was important because many of us might have feelings like this. You know, I was 7 and I didn't know better than to not have it. But it's possible that many of us have experiences like that, of the light coming through us, into us, or the light within, whichever way you want to think about it. That many of us have those experiences and either are afraid to talk about them, or don't recognize that we have them because we've told we can't, or we've had little bits of it. And one of the points of a group like this is to help each other realize experiences we've had that we might not give proper weight to. We give tons of weight to having to pay our bills. How much weight do we give to these experiences? How much time do we give to them? And then what does it do to the quality of our lives if we don't? So when I finish, if anyone would like to, I would like to invite you to share those experiences if any of you had them. And I personally think they're innate to all of us. And we might encourage each other to be able to explore them within us. Now, for me, that experience gave me a lifetime of feeling I was connected. And it never left me through really, really, really difficult times. The grounding was always there. And if we can find that in each of us, then in these dark times, we don't get unrooted. We don't get disrupted and uprooted. We'll always have that grounding. And then we can think, okay, what do we need to do individually or as a group? What do we need to do? Another question is, how do we get there? How do we get to these places? And I would like to open the discussion to that too. Obviously an hour isn't very much, but to begin it, how do we get there? And even more, it's wonderful to get there, but how do we maintain it? And then once we maintain it, what do we do with it? One of the prime ways to maintain it, I think, is practice. We can't maintain, there's so many forces against it. Personal, social, cultural, environmental, that we have to be supported in being able to maintain it. And that's another thing I would hope for this group, that we can support one another. That means we could call one another, we can chat with one another other than this one once a month. And the other thing is, there's so many forces against it. If we don't do it regularly, we lose it. I think I mentioned to you that I went to a 9-day retreat. It was totally wonderful. By day 10, I was back here. Not fully, you know, some of it stays, but it's so easy. So how do we support one another in that? And then what do we do with it? Meaning, like Andrew Harvey's idea of sacred activism. Do we do something individual? Do we do something as a group? Going back to the individual inner sensation, I was listening to a program about Rumi, the great mystic poet who died 744 years ago. And one of his beautiful lines were, "You are not a drop in the ocean. There's an ocean wooing you, the drop." Another line he has is, "The divine breathes through me." And a more practical one was, "My roof is in ruins and lets in the light," which is a really good thing for now when our civilization is broken and we individually feel powerless and lost in it. But if the roof is broken, it lets in the light and we begin to see new opportunities. How do we develop those? One of the encouraging things that's happening, Hope had mentioned to me today how she was doing research and was just astounded at all these nonprofits that started ever since the government that came in now that's so anti-environmental has come in, but all these nonprofits leaping in to try and say, wait a minute, climate change is real, we have to do something about it. There are shifts happening, there's a whole wellspring of energy that we can tap into if we take the power, or I don't know what the right word is, if it's power, or we take the initiative, or we believe we have to do something from the ground up. I personally think it's astounding what we would be able to do. From a practical point of view, what are the two major forces against doing anything? It's energy and agriculture, those two big businesses. What can we do in our local communities? Going from the inner light to the group, to what can we do in our community? Andrew Harvey has a book called Savage Grace. I don't know if you can see it or not. Can you see that? Yeah. I'm going to have a podcast with him in January. He mentioned I should read it. And he said to attempt to resist what these bad forces while lacking an understanding of reconnection and without consciously utilizing reconnection practices, it increases our vulnerability and guarantees exhaustion resulting from struggling in isolation. Our resistance must be informed by a robust connection with self, other, and the earth. And he suggests practical practice. He says, dedicate one day to taking a personal inventory of ways in which you are disconnected from yourself, others, and the earth. Notice the ways in which you're disconnected from your body. How are you disconnected from your emotions? How are you disconnected from other living beings? How are you disconnected from earth? For me, who lives here in this gorgeous place, right in the middle of the earth, where you think it would be easy, I could list a whole bunch of things very quickly about how I'm disconnected. We need to support one another because it's just darn hard. It's just darn hard to stay connected, to begin to develop ourselves as fully human. And he has other suggestions here, but I don't want to take the time for them all. Time in nature, body practices such as Tai Chi and Qigong. But it's connecting with ourselves so we can connect with our inner light, or so the inner light, like John Townsend says, if you go out into nature and you're not doing it in the right way, nature can't reach you. You need to show up in an open and respectful way, and then nature can reach you. You can't reach your own inner light, or the light can't reach you if you're not open to it. How do you make yourselves open and receptive? All of this, I'm looking forward to what you're going to say. Another point is not only are all these nonprofits, there are all these conferences. I'm going to be speaking in August at a conference called Our Sacred Earth. And it's a beautiful conference. It's not where you go and stand up on a podium and give a lecture, and then people ask a few questions and it's over. It's set up so that all the people who go, and this is open to anyone, if anyone wants to go, August 28th to September 1st, just south of Florence. And the idea is to present your ideas first before, so that people have already come informed, so that instead of a paper presentation, you outline the main ideas and then you have a discussion. And the whole time you're there, the focus is on discussion and on storytelling, which opens us rather than the more intellectual kind of thing. I'm personally going to be going, and I'm going to be speaking about plants as beings, animals. I've invited different speakers. One to speak is for plants, to speak for them, to speak for animals, that would be me, to speak for the earth, that'll be John Thompson, and then for someone to say, okay, what do we do now that we feel these beings all around us? What do we do? And that it'll end up with the idea of how do we make real that nature has rights, which is a way of actually doing something from the depths of feeling this profound connection and the beautiful back and forth that goes between us and any other living being, whatever it is, into, okay, what can we do? And I give that as an example because that conference is coming up just because of the situation. People are answering it all over the world in all these different ways. And that's where we need to put our energy to support it. So I think I'm going to stop here and look forward to hearing any of your responses to any of the stuff that I brought up. You'll have to unmute yourself, whoever wants to speak.
Okay, I can jump in. Hi. So I'm Gita, for those of you who might not know me. I'm sitting here in Denmark, and so thank you for sharing those, I call mystical experiences, Susan. It reminded me of two sort of similar experiences I had. So what you were talking about sounded like you just had them; they came to you. You didn't ask for them.
Mm-mm.
Because that was how it happened to me. These were both two where I was in a very difficult space. One time I had a migraine for 3 days, and I don't have painkillers in the house, so I hadn't had any. So eventually, I just gave up and started calling on the Christ, and I didn't expect the response I got, which was within 30 seconds after I really called out, I was completely filled up with light, and the headache, the pains just disappeared, and that was very magical. And another time was at a time where I was really going through a dark night of the soul, and I'd been washing up, I'd been doing my dishes, and I couldn't see what I was doing because the tears were just rolling down my face. And I sat down afterwards and I thought, no, I'm going to call on, at the time I was very preoccupied with Lady Kuan Yin, and I was calling on her for help. And at that time, it was very, within 30 seconds to a minute, I just had the same kind of light, and the dark night just lifted up, and I thought these were two experiences where I was so far out with pain and heavy stuff that I called out, and it came. This help came, and sometimes I used to be, at least probably somebody who needed to really be whacked over my head quite heavily before I was asking for help. So to remember that, we can have it even if we don't have to be so far out, but if we are far out, we can ask for it, and it will come in some kind of way that is really, it's there for us. So, and as you say, like it's been with you ever since, and that's the same for me. It really has been a knowledge that it's very deep, and it's there. It helps when it's really dark, and looks as if there is no, how can I possibly go through this? It helps. So thank you for reminding me just now on this, the last day of the dark nights, and tomorrow we'll have the solstice, and the light will begin to return. So I think it's a brilliant time we're having this talk about how can we bring back the light. Yeah, I think I'll keep it at that for now. I'll come back later maybe if there's first time. So thank you.
Hi, this is Marta. I also have had a couple experiences. They're different than what Susan and Gita have shared, in that I didn't feel light per se, but I felt a very deep, deep connection. The first time was when my sons were pretty young. We were on a lake up in the Adirondacks in New York State. Beautiful lake. And I was sitting on a rock by the lake, just being. And I don't remember if I saw something or if it just came into my head, but I was picturing, what do you call them? There's a kind of plant that in the fall releases all these little feathery things. There's a seed in the middle and the feathery things go out. Butterflies love them. I think you know what I mean. A seed pod that opens. And anyway, I saw myself as the center of one of these little fluffy seed pods just kind of going through the air. And then I saw that every one of us is an individual seed pod, and that that these pods, these fluffy little things, all can connect with each other. And I felt just this wonderful connection to everyone else. And the other experience that I had is one that I've already talked about in one of the previous conversations we had, which was that once a week I go to the reservoir near me, and there's a woodsy part. And for some reason, a year or so ago, I began to notice this one particular tree in the woods, and I just wanted to hug it. And so I went over and I hugged it, and it was very quiet. And as I was just embracing the tree and feeling that connection, my heart and the whole front of my body was right up against the tree. And I began to feel myself dissolve and the tree dissolve and our energies combined, so that I felt no distinction between myself and the tree. And it lasted maybe half a minute, 2 minutes, I don't know how long. But it was very deep. It felt very personal, but at the same time, very spacious. And in both these cases, for me, they both happened outside, and they both happened with things that pertain to nature. And one of the ways that I stay connected on a daily basis is to be outside and to really take the time to be aware. And I wanted to say something too about the light versus the darkness, because yes, these do seem to be very dark times. But even though we on the surface of this planet have the light, the sunshine, and so on, but underneath our feet is the planet round, and all the living beings that exist that we don't see, that are actually in the darkness. And without that darkness underneath our feet and the vibrant life that's there, the roots of the trees, the worms, everything that exists under our feet, which is in the darkness, without that, we wouldn't have the light. So there's a balance, and I just wanted to point that out because it's like the yin and yang of the same thing. That's all I wanted to say right now. Thanks.
For those of you who are new, I tend to be silent at this point because I want to give everyone a chance to speak. So don't be uncomfortable with the silence. Feel free to give it to each other and speak when you're ready.
I just have a comment to what you just said, Martha, that it's about the darkness and the light. I was thinking of it's and talking about the practice that you were asking about before. Well, how can we get there and how can we maintain it, Susan? That a practice I've had for a long time, many years, is really to remind myself that the darkness has its own luminosity, and to really be with that, and to acquaint myself with that more, so I don't become so frightened of it. I don't need to be scared of it, because, again, the same, sometimes it has to be really dark for us to be able to see the stars. So to see that the opposition is there, which is, I think, certainly what I hear you talk about, Marta. So yes, the darkness and the light come together. Mm.
A little aside to that, Martha, I was just reading something the other day about a single grain of sand has, I'd have to check it, but at least millions, one grain of sand, at least millions of little beings on it. Just one grain of sand. So the amount of life around us, amount of light and life around us is phenomenal if we can tune into it. And I personally believe if we can tune into it, it gives us the strength then to go ahead and do what we need to do to contribute to protecting and loving the planet.
That just reminds me of that old quote from William Blake that says, to be able to see the universe in a grain of sand. That's what you're talking about.
And then millions of universes on that grain of sand. All those little beings. I don't remember what they were called, but they're living.
Along those lines, one of my favorite books is Dr. Seuss' book, Horton Hears a Who, where this little elephant hears a little speck in the air crying, and it turns out that it's this whole planet in this speck. It's a great book.
So would other people like to share their experiences or move towards, okay, when we feel this light, how can we be this light in ourselves? How can we share this light for others and be the light for others? And how can we use it out in the world? Any of those? Hi, Kiki.
Hi, am I speaking now?
Yes.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. Happy to see you all again. And thank you to Marta. She mentioned something very important about the duality on the world. The light and the darkness, they come together. It's it's the essence of the universe. As we are living on the planet Earth, everything comes in duality. It means everything yin yang, light and dark, tall and short, hot and cold, everything comes together. So it's like whenever we feel we were standing in the darkness, like feeling being alone, not being supported, or feeling very weak. At the same time, we have to remind ourselves there's light behind, because this is the truth of this world. Behind the darkness, there must be light. So it's like I'm practicing about focus my mind, focus myself being inside the light. It's like there are many situations happens, it looks bad or awful, but I would remind myself there must be something else behind. So it's like shift no, it's like dissolve or remove my fear from thinking further more about the bad side, and try to let it go and focus on everything will be fine. So, and keep the faith inside, wait for a moment, and then things will turn out fine. It works many times for me already. And for them, like, I have a very funny experience, but not really, it's quite about being connected with the earth. It's one morning, I was sitting next to the window and having my breakfast. It was a shiny day, very lovely sunlight and lovely weather, view, everything was perfect. I was sitting and suddenly I feel myself like a clay from the earth. A clay, it means I'm made up of mud. And it's like the door, the mud door or clay, something. It's like I came born in this world like a clay, and I walk around and do something, whatever in my mind. And then at the end of the day, maybe the last day of my day in planet Earth, I will dissolve again. And then I own nothing. I can get nothing. And suddenly I realized this is how I relate to the earth. The earth gives me everything. The earth gives me this body and everything I need to maintain my life. And finally, after I enjoy all this thing, I will give it back to the earth and my spirit will go to somewhere else. So it's like, I feel so glad about this planet Earth. Always love me, always give everything to me. Even like my friends, my family, and my companion, my feline companion is sitting behind me. It's all wonderful. So it's like, I cannot feel lonely again. I cannot. And so it makes me feel, it keeps me keep walking on and explore more about love. And I really love to see you all here. And thank you so much. It's very inspiring all the time to be here with you. Like, thank you. Sorry, I speak too much.
No, you don't speak too much.
Thank you.
Hi everyone. This for everyone who's new. I'm Nikki. I'm with Earthfire. And Kiki, what you said was just so wonderful. I was sitting here thinking about how Susan was like wondering to the whole group of what do we do once we find our light and hone in on our light. And I was thinking positivity, but what you said is really more to the point of that in everything there is balance. And instead of being consumed by the darkness and consumed by negativity and resigning ourselves to being just as negative, I think we just need to remember that this too shall pass and find our light and just carry on as best as we can for the earth, for the animals, for each other. And I think that practice will help keep ourselves balanced and in tune with everything around us. So I really love what you said. And I completely agree. I don't have a specific experience per se that comes to mind right now, but there are moments and activities I can do that I know I can access my light and I can feel my inner energy, my vibration that I kind of emit to the world. And and I feel very strongly about knowing how to access that and kind of carry it with me on a daily basis, but I certainly struggle with how to make good use of it. So I'm just curious if anyone else feels this strongly about their inner energy, or maybe ways that they try to, you know, activate that energy. Anyone? Bueller.
Hi. I'm new to this group. I'm very familiar with Earthfire Institute. I've been being a supporter for many years. But hello, Susan. Nice to see you. What I do every morning is I have a practice. There's a book that I purchased called Light. What is Light Body? And there's several things in there, but on a daily basis, what I do is the unified chakra practice. I read that, and then there's a grounding practice, and then there's connecting to different beams of light, different colors. There's like the silver ray and the blue ray, the sapphire blue ray, and others. So I just do do that on a daily basis. And then most recently, I read a little thing that Eckhart Tolle had, and that is it's like a simple inspirational thing that he puts up, and he said that there are no problems in the present moment. So when I run into problems, I just say that, and literally in just a short time they go away. So trying to stay in the present moment is what I try to do. And then treat everybody with love and respect, no matter who they are. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know that people with ideas, that Edie, I see your lovely name, and John, and all kinds of people who I know have brilliant things to say. Okay, I won't say billion, so you're not threatened. Julia?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Susan. This is Julia. I'm new here. Been wanting to make one of our circle calls for a long time, but usually with my job schedule and a long commute home, that's why I was a few minutes late here. So I'm just so thankful and so appreciative for you, Susan, and for everyone here. What a gift to be able to come home to after an hour drive from an office setting, and being here with everyone. Earthfire's been very close and dear to my heart because of the love, that everyone has for Mother Earth and for all of her beings. For me, it's always been a way of life ever since I was a very, very small girl. I just don't know any different. And it's been so easy for me recently to lose that balance. I think you were speaking of that, Kiki, and several others talking about, where is my balance? Who am I in this time? And what am I called to do, what's in my heart to do? Having been an activist ever since a very, very young age as well, I never anticipated or imagined that we'd be in this time that we're in right now. It wasn't part of my game plan, my vision, my dreams, what I felt our animal nature folks were always sharing and talking with me about. So sometimes it's very devastating for me, very heartbreaking, gut-wrenching, many, many tears, and not necessarily quite sure what to do, regardless of my shamanic practices, my spiritual practices, things I've known for so long. But as I'm from California, from the ocean, from the water, and currently been living in the middle of the desert in Phoenix. And so that's been a whole different world for me. I feel like I've literally moved to another country. And there's a little place, it's a little green patch in the midst of some homes right around the corner from me here that I can take a walk to. It's on the grass when it's grassy. Other times it's dirt and sand and rocks. There's some very, very gorgeous, old, deep-rooted trees. I can literally sit on one of the trees' trunks that has expanded, you know, across some of the grassy area. And then I can take a little walk down a path that's off of a very busy street, a thoroughfare from one city to another. And it was about a year ago, and I was just sitting with the trees, and all of a sudden they started singing.
Mm.
I mean, literally singing. It might have been a little over a year ago. And they shared a song with me about beauty, about being able to see beauty in all things. I just got braces a couple months ago, so talking, speaking, it just doesn't quite feel like me yet. And so I'm not feeling real comfortable singing it, but it was just more of a little chant. And it's about sing as we, the trees, we sing. We see beauty in all. Sing as we do. See beauty, know beauty, be beauty. And there was so much more to it. And when I take a walk, sometimes they'll add to it. Sometimes we'll sit and sing, or I'll listen to them sing. And I realize Molly's in the other room, or I'm not quite sure where she is. I turn on the video, but man, I'm still in my work clothes. The room's a mess and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
But,
sure. I'd love to see your face.
let me see if I can turn it on. I think I have it on. Yeah, there I am.
Hi.
And you know, and Molly is such a blessing. We adopted each other over a year ago. It was the end of September. I was given a dream by a jaguar companion in feline form who suddenly passed on. I was devastated, heartbroken, and he gave me a dream about a little black and white kitten, very specific, so I won't take up all of our time. Very clear. She was in a shoebox on top of my dresser that I really have. She's a butterfly, all these kind of things. I'm thinking, how am I going to find this little black and white fluffy kitten that Simba told me is in this shoebox? You know, he in my dream, I asked him, why is she in there? We must get her out. And he looked at me and he said, duh, to keep her safe, of course. So anyway, butterflies, lots of different things led me to Molly. Where she was and how she was found, they had named her Butterfly. And he had told me her name was to be Molly. Molly is a fun name. And, but she's butterfly energy, that cocoon. I think it was Kiki and others talking about that balance of light and dark. And, you know, I know the darkness and the rootedness and the groundedness, but man, sometimes I'm not being very grounded, not like I know to be or want to be, because it's been so hectic and racing and rushing around and day job and things like that. And Molly's been talking to me about climb that tree. I mean, she's indoors. She stays inside here in our little 2-bedroom place. And, but she keeps talking to me, climb that tree. Look at the top of the tree. She'll give me a vision of herself. You know, this little black and white, fluffy, you know, short-legged, you know, little Spitfire, climbing the tree and looking around and surveying the land and seeing it from a different perspective, or seeing it from that perspective of up above. And then being able to come back down and root and ground, like the tree is so deeply rooted and grounded. I think it was, sorry, I didn't catch your name. You work with Earthfire. You were asking about what kind of tools can we use, or what kind of things can we do? So I'm thinking of the song that the trees, you know, gave me, is giving all of us. I think all of nature wants to sing too. I listen to the wind. I'm involved in what we call a wind clan. You know, being in harmony with the wind and wanting to listen to her song and what is she saying to us. So for me, if I can connect again with the song the trees gave me, with Molly, with the wind, we don't have a lot of wind here, but when it does come, I am so thankful and so grateful. I'm wanting to say, what song are you singing? You know, how can I be a part of that song? And then I feel like everything's going to be okay. And when I'm not, man, it can be holy heck, you know? So I just want to thank you, everyone, so much for this opportunity to be here. And I really, really appreciate being here. Really needed this.
I really think life does sing to us. We just aren't able to hear most of the time. And what a different world it would be if we could, and how to help one another hear.
Yes, sharing our songs or the songs that we're given.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think about Molly's song and everything that she went through in such a short amount of time, several months before we met each other. She was 6 months old when we crossed paths. And it was just absolute magic how we did. And she's all about play. You know, that's her name was, you know, somebody told me very clearly, her name's Molly. Her name's Molly. I'm thinking, okay, that's a cute name. Mm-hmm. You know, but she's butterfly energy. And I'm used to big, huge cat energy, lions and tigers, and Simba was huge. Jaguar. I mean, just Jaguar all the way through, you know, a shamanic teacher of mine. And here's this little one who's fluffy black and white. She's the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, the balance. But her song is all about play. I mean, she wants to play the first thing in the morning, last thing at night.
This is very good advice.
Exactly.
Especially in dark times.
Yeah, and I am not good at playing. Man, I have lost that play. And
she wants to say something.
Yeah, sorry, she's not gonna let me get away with it.
Oh, you're fine. I just I see where Jessica also I think I love everyone's stories, and I just want to make sure that Jessica gets a chance to.
Thanks, Nikki.
Thanks.
Am I being heard?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. That's some beautiful things you shared, Julie. And I have a similar experience with finding my kitty cat, who's going crazy in the background right now. So excuse me if I'm a little distracted. But I just wanted to share an experience of mine, and kind of just every day how I experience the light. And it comes to me in symbols or in nature. But your question about, you know, kind of communing with this made me think of an experience I had many years ago. I was just out of high school, or actually, sorry, just out of college. And I was having a lot of romantic turmoil with someone I was seeing. And I was very distraught, and I was out in public, kind of on the outskirts of this very affluent downtown. And I was smoking cigarettes at the time. And I kept on smoking cigarettes and then offering the tobacco and asking for help. Like, I would smoke a cigarette, and then I would take a cigarette and I would break it open. And I didn't know who I was asking or what I was asking, but something told me to do this. And I've always been kind of a self-conscious person. And in this moment I wasn't, and I don't know if it was because I was so distraught, but people were walking by and I kind of didn't care. And then all of a sudden, a voice came into my head and started telling me what to do, which it told me to get up and start walking, which I did. And it led me to the downtown area. And, you know, there's just affluent shops, and I don't remember many details of what I saw, but I just remember this feeling of bliss. And I kind of remember it was like a friend walking arm in arm with me, like they took my arm. And I remember distinctively they showed me this restaurant, this very expensive restaurant where people were eating and consuming, and it just told me that, like, you're not that. And what I understood that to be is like, I am not the rat race, or I'm not a consumer, or I'm not, that's not the true experience in life. But I just remember this, like I was walking on a cloud and I was with a best friend. And then they led me back away from the downtown area, close to where I had been smoking cigarettes and offering tobacco. And they just kind of gave me a hug and walked away. And it was kind of like I snapped out of a dream experience and got dropped back into the reality of this world. But I was never the same after that. And I kind of wondered, well, who was that? And what was that? And I never really got a clear answer, except, you know, it could have been my higher self. It could have been, you know, a spiritual guide. But yeah, it was just a beautiful walk with a beautiful someone who showed me, you know, that this hustle and bustle of the world isn't all that it's made out to be. And you know, my experience in kind of knowing about, you know, the light, and I feel very grounded in that, and I think where I'm lacking is I just don't have a community to share it with, and yeah, and to talk about it and share and grow. And so I'm so thankful for this meetups that we do, and thank you, Susan, and yeah, thank you so much.
You can all thank me, but it comes from the earth and the animals. It just comes through me. So I appreciate the thanks, but it's something other than me, really.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jessica.
Yeah.
One thing that's really standing out as everyone's kind of shared their individual stories is that these experiences are coming from a recognition of individual energy. And we've been talking a lot this last week at Earthfire about recognizing the individual being within a species, or, you know, a plant type, you know, individual bears within the family of grizzly bears. And I think for me too, that's one way of activating that energy, is just recognizing that while humans tend to act a certain way, and you know, the milkweed gets fuzzy and blows around in the fall, and, you know, bison can be territorial. I think it's just, for those of you, a plug, if you would love to read about Earthfire's territorial bluebell, we have the sweetest story on our website. But my point is just finding the individual, the reciprocity you can have between yourself and another person, or being, wrong word, another being, is really just what stands out to me in this conversation.
And the companionship that's available to us, like who has it said that you can never be alone again? The companionship is everywhere if we look for it. And ideally, we don't have to wait for despair in order to have that connection.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we need to break through, apparently. But boy, I wish we could support one another so we can have more of that and bring that more of that, shine more of that light out in the world. Because if we were more connected, there wouldn't be so much despair. We'd make better decisions. We'd help other people make better decisions. I think it's getting close to time. Is there anyone who really would like to speak before we end?
I'd like to just kick in with something that I thought about when you talked about earlier, Susan, and I feel it's important that we really be gentle with ourselves and have self-compassion, so that when you say, how can we maintain it? That yes, that's a good goal, but we have to also remember that we do lose it, and then we don't want to beat ourselves up when we do. We, you know, but when we lose it, what a wonderful opportunity then to get it back, you know, to find it again and to welcome it back in, and rather than looking at now I lost it again, you know, that it's that kind of attitude, and keep practicing. Okay, so okay, I'm out again. So hey, I have another opportunity to come back. So that was just, I thought that was an important little thing to remember.
Yeah. So I think, does anyone else like to have a final say? Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I see you.
Hi, Susan. Hi, it's Edie. We have a little bit of our internet's not so good, so if I fade out, it's delightful to see your face, Susan, and everyone else. And I just wanted to share a little story because it sort of connects with several things that people said about the milkweed and the butterflies. I was just in Florida visiting some of my girlfriends, and they have milkweed that they planted in their backyard, and the monarch butterflies come, and it was their high season, and so there were caterpillars completely devouring the milkweed, and I got to magically sit with them and watch them transform into the chrysalis several times, and it was just an absolute magical connection, and part of, you know, I was there and I was on holiday, and so I had lots of time to just sit and be present and be quiet with them and watch, and how to bring that back into everyday life, because like you say, Susan, it's all around. There's infinite opportunities to connect with people or creatures or the earth, and it's just sitting very beautifully with me to bring back to the winter here in Canada. And the chrysalis that formed, I don't know if anyone's had that opportunity to see them, but they are this incredibly beautiful lime green, and they have gold dots on them, like gold, metallic gold, and it was like this jewel, absolute jewel. And here's this caterpillar breaking its skin off and pushing it off, and this beautiful iridescent lime green creature underneath that just has absolute faith in what it's doing, you know, not knowing probably it's going to be this beautiful butterfly in a few weeks. And it was just magic. So yeah, I just wanted to share that, and I'll look forward to future gatherings.
It's a lovely ending. I remember. You have some announcements, Hope?
Thank you all for joining the conversation. The next conversation will actually be held the 5th Wednesday in January on the 31st at 6 o'clock, because Susan will be traveling to Mexico to speak at a conference. So registration for that will open on the 19th. So we hope you will all be back for that. All of the materials, if there were any readings or anything, those links will be sent to you with a thank you email. And if you have any comments or questions or feedback, you can email us at wildlife@earthfireinstitute.org. Thank you for joining us.
Remember that beautiful Rumi quote, the ocean is wooing us. There is an ocean wooing us, not we are the drop, but the ocean is wooing the drop. And like you said so beautifully, Julie, was singing to us. Have a lovely solstice. And I look forward to speaking to you when I get back up. It's a conference called Minding Animals International. And I'll have stories when I come back. But all of you, please, everyone on here, feel free to email me, contact me if you want to talk between now and then. Lovely to have you all here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Susan.
Good night,
everyone.
Good night.
Blessings.
Good night.